Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the two Ewes of Two Ewes Fibra Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2UsFibraAdventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2 Ewes Fibra Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode.
Hi, Marsha.
Hi, Kelly.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Good.
It's we're recording later in the day. It's 5 o'clock. It's past 5 o'clock now.
Yeah.
And what are you drinking?
Well, I'm having a glass of wine. Mm-hmm. I was actually at work this week. And let me just add, I'm sitting in the trailer.
Okay.
Having a glass of wine. And the reason I'm sitting in the trailer partly is because it kind of feels like I'm outside when I'm in the trailer. Mm-hmm. And I spent yesterday, day before yesterday, and then all of today in a dungeon basement room interviewing people. So I need to feel like I'm outside.
Yeah.
Having a glass of wine, sitting in the trailer, looking out at the yard. I can see chickens. They're included in my view. So, how about
Very
you?
Nice. I'm having a beer.
Okay.
I'm having one of the Lagunitas from Petaluma. I think I've had that before. We talked about it. It's my summer drink. I think is a beer.
Okay, yeah. I'm in my pajama pants and my neighborhood fiber company t-shirt. I'm feeling good. I've been having to get dressed and dressed in a way that looks professional, wear a bra and all that stuff. Put on a little makeup and brush my hair.
So what does dressing professional look like?
Oh, well, I had just slacks, I didn't wear jeans. Mm-hmm. Of course, no one could tell because I was sitting at a table, but slacks. And today I had actually a shawl on as a scarf because the room was Arctic. Yeah. Jacket, t-shirt and jacket. Mm-hmm. Long sleeve t-shirt and jacket. Mm-hmm. So, it's not like I wear a, suit and pumps and...
Mm-hmm. What do they call it?
A power suit? Yeah, no. Yeah. I don't dress like that. But I have been wearing the jewelry that we both got something from Alana Dacos of Never Not Knitting at Stitches. Mm-hmm. And she very kindly gave us some jewelry to review. And I got the bracelet. It's freshwater pearls and then stitch mark and silver, which I love. Mm-hmm. I like pearls a lot. And I like silver. And so the pearls and the silver and then the stitch markers hang off of it. And the stitch markers that I have, one of them is silver. The biggest one is kind of a silvery crystal. Mm-hmm. And then the other one, kind of a smoky crystal. And then the others are purple, like sort of amethyst colored crystals. So I've been really enjoying wearing that bracelet. It makes me feel like I'm close to my knitting even though I'm at work.
Yes, and she gave me a necklace that has one clear crystal on it, I think, and then she gave me 5 stitch markers with other crystals on them, and all kind of that smoky color.
Oh, okay,
they're really nice, and it's nice too because the necklace has the silver, as I call it, a squiggle that you can then put all the stitch markers to just slide on it, and they hang off of there, and then it's on a very thin leather necklace that it's all fitting on. So it's nice. I really like it, and I actually have worn it quite a bit. Yeah,
I think the necklace is really classy looking. I prefer bracelets. I wear them more, but I did like the look of that necklace a lot. And the bracelet is a little bit large for me, and I do have all of the stitch markers on it. Mm-hmm. But it's a little heavy, and I have to be careful that the bracelet doesn't slip off. Yeah. But I love it. It's really nice.
So she has an actual shop in Atascadero, California,
called Never Not Knitting.
Yeah. So, and she has a website.
Yeah, I'll link to the website in the show notes.
Yeah, yeah. So it was very nice of her to give those to us, and we've both been wearing our jewelry.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've been wearing it more as jewelry and not really using them as stitch markers.
I haven't.
I like them so much.
I haven't used mine as stitch markers either.
Yeah, yeah.
I think they make it makes a really pretty jewelry piece.
Yeah.
To have the bracelet with the stitch markers all hanging off of one silver squiggle, as you call it.
Yeah.
So the jewelry company is Wool and Wire, and she carries that in her shop. I'm gonna have to drive down there. Maybe one of my summer jaunts is gonna. I have two things that I think would be fun. One is to go north on Highway 1 and catch the Swift Stitch, Fengari, which is the shop in Half Moon Bay, and then I think it's called the Knitting Bee or the Cozy Bee or something with a bee in it. That's new shop in Pacifica. And I thought, well, that would be a fun little trip to make. And then the other trip that would be fun would be to head down towards south towards San Luis Obispo and see Alana's shop and Never Not Knitting, and then Yarn and the Adobes, some of the shops down there. So we'll see if I actually do that or not.
Yeah.
Maybe sometime in July or the beginning of August, right before I go back to school. It's like mad dash to do everything I've wanted to do all summer.
You're going to have to get out of your pajamas, though.
I know. All of this. I realized I was... Okay, we're going way off on a tangent, but one last thing. I was on a website that it uses Google Maps to map a radius around a location. And so bees they spend most of their time in a 2-mile radius, but they go anywhere from, they might even get to like 3 miles, a 3-mile radius away from the hive. So I went on this site and I did this 3-mile radius, and then I did a 5-mile radius, and I realized that I don't ever go outside of a 5-mile radius of my house. I mean, I was thinking, okay, about walking trips, like how far is this? How far is that? Could I walk there? Could I walk there? And all of a sudden, as I was, after I was finished figuring out where my bees go, and I was playing around with the site, I thought, okay, this is sad. Even when I get in the car and drive, I don't go outside of a 5-mile radius.
Okay, so now that you bring this up, I'm just thinking about my life. I think I'm pretty much within a 5-mile radius. Right?
Really?
The grocery store, the bank, dog grooming.
I guess that's good, but
and we have every Saturday we are having dinner at my mother's house. That's less than 5 miles away, I think. I don't know. I'm gonna have to check and see how far that is.
I'll have to look up that. I'll see if I can find that website again where you calculate your bee's radius. I don't know.
Well, and you're unusual because you're just literally like a block and a half from work, right?
Yeah. So I don't have to drive to work. In fact, when I used to work in the summer, and I had to drive when I worked at doing the summer bridge project, I had to drive. It was about 5 miles away, but once I was in the car, I always felt like, oh, I should go here. I should go there. It was kind of like once I got in the car, I realized there might be places I wanted to go. But if I never got in the car, it's like I never got even dressed. Okay, so that's enough about my life in the summer.
This might be too much information.
Right. I'm beginning to sound like a hermit, but I kind of am.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I kind of am in the summer.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
Okay, so projects. So what's the word down there in California on projects?
Well, I have been doing quite a bit of spinning. Well, actually, let me start at the beginning.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah, I'm doing my own little version of Stash Dash. And that's a contest that happens in the summer with the Knit Girls podcast. And I don't think I'm participating in that, but I thought, it would be fun to figure out how much yarn I could use in the summer. And maybe I talked about this in the last episode. I can't remember. But so I set up my project page so that I have a group of projects grouped by a tag, Summer 18. So I can look, I have a little tab on the top, and I can just look at that tab, and if I go to the bottom of that page, so everything that was finished in Summer 18 or started in Summer 18, everything I think I'm going to finish in Summer 18, including a project that's on the loom right now, is there. And at the bottom, it tells me how many meters or yards I've used in these total projects. And then you can click on View Details, and you get this little bar chart. Did you know, Marsha, there is actual research that shows that it's more motivating to like color in a bar to show your progress than it is to like check something off your list.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, so that's...
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So I sometimes do that on my to-do list. If I have, a few things that are all related, I put a little bar so I can color the bar in. I don't know if it's really true or not, but I have seen research. At least one research study that shows that.
Well, then maybe that's what I should be doing.
Well, and so it shows little bars of how much I've finished and everything. So I finished the Summer Fjord. I think I had finished that the last.
Yes. Yeah.
And I have also finished the Summer Sleeveless Top. And I've worn that. I wore that to interviews one day under a jacket. So anyway, it has all the different bars showing how many yards. So I have so far finished things with 2,235 meters.
Wow.
Yes.
Pretty good. And
so I'm just kind of started.
Not been out that long.
Yeah. So I'm keeping track because I'm kind of curious how much can I use of my stash during the summer. And then the other thing that I have done, because I wanted to get more yardage, but I can't figure out how to get it all together in one place. I don't think Ravelry will do this. I can't get the spinning projects to show the yardage in the same way. But I have a bunch of samples that I hadn't plied, so I plied them and washed them. I had some other things that were hanging around in balls, center pull balls that I plied. So 2 big skeins, 3 little sample skeins, and then also the skein of the Huckleberry knits that I bought in January. I've spun that as Polworth silk.
I saw your picture on I think on Instagram.
Yeah.
Or no.
I think it was. I think it might have been on Instagram.
Yeah, it looks really pretty.
I was supposed to have it be all the colors all lined up. That was my plan. But what happened was, I don't know why. Something I did wrong. Maybe one of them I didn't start in the right direction. I don't know. But 2 of them lined up, and one of them never did. So it's barber pulled, but it's like one contrast or different color throughout most of the skein. It's one different color with 2 that are the same. It's really pretty. I'm not unhappy with it at all. It just didn't do what I thought.
It's a technique, Kelly.
Right, but it wasn't the technique I thought I was doing.
Well, it is now.
Yeah, right. I should just claim it as my intention. Yeah. So a lot of spinning, just finishing up old spinning things. And then I did finish the summer tank, which I like it. I made it a little longer than the pattern called for, which I liked. I like the length of it. I measured it against another top that I liked, so that was good. I've made a bear, so I counted the bear for yardage. And then I'm working on the Argyle socks still, the ones that are for Dennis, my mom's husband, for his birthday. But I think I'm going to be done early, so I might give him to him early. And then I have 2 new projects that I've started, and one that I pulled the trigger and bought the pattern. So I don't know. Ooh. Do you want to wait to talk about those and you talk about your stuff for a little bit?
Yeah, well, I don't have too much to say.
Okay. Well, tell us what you're doing.
So I'm going to claim this is technically done. My Little Wave, the cardigan by Gudrun Johnson.
Oh, good.
I'm going to claim that it's done. I'll tell you where it is right now. When you had texted me that you were ready to start recording, I said I need 5 more minutes. And the reason I needed 5 more minutes is I had washed and blocked just the sleeves, and I was pinning them out on the towel when you texted me. Anyway, so just to back up and remind people, I was having some problems with the sleeves, and I don't remember now where I was in the last time that we recorded, but I was.
You were just starting to rework them. We had done the math. And I knit the entire sleeve. Or no, I take back. Okay, let me slow down and start from the very beginning. Fortunately, I had only ripped out one sleeve. And part of the reason I only ripped out one sleeve is they're knit from the bottom up, but now I'm ripping from the bottom up and unraveling. And so those increased stitches were very difficult to unravel. And so that's why I did one sleeve, and I thought, this is so much work, I can't do the second one. Now I'm just going to have to get back to knitting. Well, that really was a good thing, because I started re-knitting the second sleeve, and I think what we decided I was going to do, because now I'm doing, instead of increases, because I'm now working from the shoulder down, I was going to be doing decreases. Right.
And I believe we decided I was going to do it every 7 rows. And I got down to the elbow, or a little below the elbow, and on a Saturday night with our regular Saturday night dinners, I asked my friend Kim to take a look at it, because I said, I think it looks really weird. And we agreed that it did. It was decreasing too soon. So it fit well, but it didn't look good. It made the yoke look funny. It didn't lay flat for some reason. I think, I say
because usually there aren't decreases up there. Is that right? Yeah.
I think that's the reason. So, because you actually knit about 12 rows before you do your first decrease. So I ripped it out, and I redid it, and I kept, I think, probably 4 times. I took it off. I was just knitting it on double pointed needles, and I took it off and put it on waste yarn and tried it on. So what I ended up doing was I matched the decreases, or I'm going to say shaping, because the truth is they're actually increases if you're doing it the correct way, from the bottom up. But now from the top down, I did the shaping the same way as the pattern instructed. So every 12 rows, I did an increase row. I did that 5 times, which then got me down to, I was down around the elbow, or a little below the elbow. And then I did, I have to look at my notes, I did 4 decrease rows on every 6th row, which then reduced it from 68 inches down to 40 inches.
You sped up the decreases in the lower part of your arm.
Right. Because the thing is, the lower part of your arm is a lot thinner than the upper part of your arm. And I have kind of skinny little wrists, too. So compared to my upper, everything above the elbow. And by the way, too, I'm gesturing. Nobody can see this. But everything above the elbow up to the shoulder is about the same size. Everything from the elbow down is a lot thinner. I think that's how it is on most people. So, and it worked out really well. So I actually went from 68 stitches up at the upper arm down to 40 at the wrist. Which the pattern, it would have been 68 inches up at the top, which I kept the same. But
68 stitches.
68 stitches at the upper arm, and it would have been 50 stitches at the wrist.
Yeah, so you made a significant decrease, but you did most of them below the elbow.
Right.
Okay.
So it looks a lot better, and
good.
So then I wove in all the ends, and I put the buttons on just before we talked, and then I decided not to wash and block. I decided not to wash and block the entire sweater. I just stuck the sleeves in a bowl and let them soak for a little bit, and now they're...
So you have everything done, buttons and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, you count that as done.
It's done. So now I will, when the sleeves are dry, I will put the sweater on Blythe Spirit.
So
and
Marsha,
take a picture.
Color in the little bar.
Yes.
for the little waves cardigan. You're done. Yay.
Incidentally, I'm just going to side note. If I was to do my to-do list as a bar, I would just make a line, like a box, right? A line, a rectangle across the top of my to-do list, and then it would be, like go to the bank, go to the grocery store, vacuum, wash the dishes. And then I would just keep coloring in across that bar.
Or you could do the bar down.
Oh, down. Okay.
Like, you could do it kind of like those, thermometers for fundraising. You could do your. I'm just brainstorming, but you could do your to-do list from the bottom up, right?
Yeah. So I would still
and then you
could
a list, and then you could color it in from, but you'd have to know the order you were going to do things.
I'd have to do it in order, yeah.
But you could do that. If I have 4 classes worth of homework grading to do, I'll make a little bar with 4 parts, and then I'll color in. Okay, the ridiculous things people do to motivate themselves.
I'm intrigued and inspired by this idea.
Well, it is funny how motivating it was for me to think about, not that I'm trying to get to a certain goal. I just want to see how much yardage I can. Some of this stuff was started before summer. I don't do stash like some people do, where they hoard projects that they don't do the very last part. That feels like cheating to me, so I don't do it that way. Other people, if that's what they want to do, that's fine. I'm not making a judgment. But for myself, I wouldn't. When I'm almost finished with a project, I want to get it done. I'm not going to wait until summer starts so that I can count that yardage. Yeah. But I am curious, in a certain period of time, and so summer's a good period of time for me to look at it. In a certain period of time, how much can I really use up? If I want to count it. But then having those bar charts is really motivating. That's why I was...
Yeah.
And I can't find the bar charts. I can't get bar charts from my handspun. The project page in Ravelry has separate project pages for your projects and for your handspun.
Yeah.
And I cannot get... There maybe is a way, I just don't know how to do it. But I can't get bar charts for the handspun.
Yeah.
But those bar charts are really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, I'm inspired now. I think I'm going to rethink my to-do list instead of checking things. I just draw a line through it, but I think that bar thing is going to be...
You're going to do a little thermometer.
Yeah. So I'm calling my sweater done, and nice. I will, in the next, probably tomorrow when the sweater's dry, I'll put her on Blythe Spirit, as I say, and take
some
a picture
pictures
of the sweater.
Very cool.
And it's going to be warm in Albany, Oregon for Black Sheep Gathering, which we'll talk about later, but I may bring it. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, if you have room, put it in. I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
But if you don't have room, I know you're coming on the train.
I was thinking of bringing that, but I was also, because it is Black Sheep Gathering with, it's a lot about handspun, I was actually thinking of bringing my combo spin sweater, one of my combo spin sweaters.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. But it's going to be warm down there. I really don't need any wool. But my other project I'm working on is the Summer Fjord. I'm actually sitting here knitting on it right now.
All right.
And I would say I am, because I was trying to finish that other sweater. So I don't know. I am from the armhole. I'm probably 8 or 9 inches down from the armhole.
Nice.
I've done 1 pattern repeat, and I'm halfway through the 2nd pattern repeat. And about ready to do another row of increases, because as you remember, I talked last episode, I had not read the pattern all the way through and didn't realize that after you join the yarn, you decrease about 28 stitches to sort of do the beginning of the arm shaping. So I had to do a little correcting. So I'm doing increases now, so it'll fit around the hips. So, and then the other thing is because I finished the knitting part of my little wave. The last 2 nights I've been back to spinning my 3rd combo spin, and I finished up the last bit of fiber for the 2nd bobbin, and now I'm going to open up in fact I have it sitting here on the table in front of me, and probably after we get off the phone I'm going to open up the second to the last bag and break it all into pieces, the fiber into pieces, so I can start spinning that tonight.
Nice.
So I'm hoping to finish, I have 1.5 bobbins, 1 3/4 bobbins done. I have to spin a 3rd bobbin and I can ply that. And then I should be close to done, I'm hoping. I now need to start thinking about what I'm going to do next. And I have the yarn that we had processed, and then when I was down there in April, we dyed, kind of the teal color. I've done a swatch of that, and I've been looking at sweaters, trying to think if I want to use that next. Or I also, do you remember I was saying that I went over to get help at the yarn shop here in my neighborhood, and to get help with the little wave, and I bought yarn? Anyway, it's a 50-50 silk merino.
Ooh.
And sitting here right now, I cannot remember the name of it, because that's not the point. The point is it's a 50-50 silk merino, which I think it will be very drapey.
Yeah.
There's a sweater I've been looking at making for years called Cloud Cover by Heidi Kermeyer.
Oh, yeah.
And I've tried different... I have different yarns that I thought I would use for that, but I think they're either merino... something I don't think is going to be drapey enough. And so, because the sweater is all stockinette, and it's not the body I'm worried about so much, but the collar is bands of stockinette and reverse stockinette. And I'm afraid that if you have something that has too much spring to it, that collar is not going to lie flat.
Right. It's going to be like ribbing.
Right.
Yeah. And
so I think I'm going to do a swatch, but I think that with that much silk in it, I think it probably would lay flat. And it's the right weight of yarn, too. It's DK. My other thought is if I finish the combo spin and the gauge is right, my combo spin might work because... now I'm not remembering, but I have a ton of silk.
It's a lot of silk. Spin. I think it's a little over 30%.
Yeah. So that was another thought maybe is my combo spin. So I don't know. But that's what I've been kind of thinking of.
So you have some dreams? Knitting dreams?
Yes. Knitting dreams. Well, and I kind of need, when I go down to Albany, Oregon for the Black Sheep Gathering, Kim and I are taking the train, so we'll have probably a good 6 hours or more of knitting each way on the train. So I have the linen Summer Fjord, but I sometimes find after a while the linen, I want to not use the linen yarn. I like being able to go back and forth between the linen and wool. Yeah. And I do have 2 shawls, of course, that I can knit on, but I also I'm kind of itching to start knitting with one of those, either the yarn that we dyed. I am really itching to start knitting with that.
Yeah, that was pretty. That was a pretty color.
Yeah, but I'm having a hard time deciding what sweater I want to make. So, anyway, that's it for me on projects. But anyway, back to your projects.
Okay, well, so my 2 new projects, a knitting project, I'm doing the pillow that's similar to the blanket. So, the pillow pattern, it's by Mona Zilla, and she's Mona 8 Pie or Bunny Muff on Ravelry. Anyway, I found out about her from the 2 women who do the podcast Teaching Your Brain to Knit. Catherine uses a lot of her patterns, and so I went and looked at her patterns one day, and I found these 2 patterns gorgeous. One of them is a blanket that has this bee motif on it, and it's the bee, and then around the bee is a little... I don't know, clover or thistle plant, kind of a stylized plant, and then below that are 2 rabbits. Just gorgeous. So I want to make the blanket, but I'm first making the pillow. The pattern is called Clover, Bee, and Reverie, and it's a reference to a poem by Emily Dickinson. And then the blanket is called Such is the Quality of Bees, and it's a reference to a quote from Tolstoy. And I gotta admit to some stupidity. So I knew the motif was the same for the pillow and the blanket, and I looked at, so I got the blanket pattern as a gift, a prize, from a knit along that I did. So I got the blanket pattern, and I looked at the blanket pattern, and it's like, okay, this is the same size as the pillow, right? The middle motif of the blanket. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to use I'm not going to get the pillow pattern. I'm just going to use this, chart that's in the blanket, because it's the same for the pillow. So I'm hemming and hawing and trying to figure out, like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to start? Blah, blah, blah. And I thought, you dummy, just buy the pillow pattern. It's like $5. What's your problem? You can't go outside of your 5-mile radius and you can't spend money on patterns? What kind of rules are these? So I did. I bought the pillow pattern too. And then I kind of went back and forth to make sure that I was getting everything I wanted in the pillow. So anyway, now I have the pillow pattern and I was looking at it, and it actually has some interesting information in it that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't come to my senses.
Okay.
Anyway, so I started the pillow, and I'm not very far on it, but I'm using the Neighborhood Fiber Company yarn that we bought at Stitches, and I love working with that yarn. Yeah. The studio worsted, I just love it. This pillow is going to be absolutely gorgeous. I'm so happy with it.
So how is it? Because it's double stitch, right? How is that?
The pillow is not. The pillow.
Oh, it's not.
Because
okay. Oh, that's right. It wouldn't need to be.
Yeah, because it's just.
You're not going to see the back.
But,
yeah.
But there was an interesting link to a tutorial by Sockmatician that is a really interesting way to do color work with long floats. I decided not to use it, but basically you are kind of double knitting in the back. So you're knitting along in the front, and then in the back you have your float coming along. But in the middle of that float, there's like a knit stitch. So there's a column of knit stitches in the back that never show in the front.
Oh, okay.
And, and they're not like every stitch. So it's not like double knitting where it would be every stitch. It's only like every 4 stitches or so. And so you have a float for, 3 or 4 stitches, and then you have a stitch in the back, and then you have a float for 3 or 4 stitches, and then you have a stitch in the back.
Okay.
So it's real stretchy too. Your color work is not binding up your knitting, so it doesn't have stretch. So I watched the video on that, and I was tempted to use it, but then I looked at the other possibility, which is this Armenian way of catching your floats every other stitch, which is really a lot like what I did with the Orca sweater. And so I started using that first because I could wrap my mind around it better. It was something that was less new to me. And the color work to begin with the stranded color work is kind of new to me. So I thought, if I'm trying to do this he called it ladder back jacquard, or invisible jacquard, something like that. Because the advantage of it is that it doesn't, if you tack your stitches down like every other stitch in this method, you can see blips of color showing through the front. And in my Orca sweater, the same thing happened. Depending on the tension, there were places where I have blips of color, and a couple places where I undid it and redid it with different tension so that those color blips wouldn't show. With this, because the yarn is tonal and gold, and the contrast color is brown and tonal, the yarn showing through on the back it doesn't seem to be a problem. I mean, it's not going to be really noticeable. If my contrast color was white and my main color was dark, then I think I might want to use this Sockmatician's ladderback jacquard tutorial. But I think it's going to be fine the way it is. And I also like that it's a little denser. If you're tacking every stitch, it's like a 2-layer thing. If you just have this sort of floating, every once in a while, a column of knit stitches, you're not adding structure to the fabric. You just have another fabric floating kind of behind.
Right.
And so I think I like the structure that I'm creating. But I have to say I think I did 4 rows, and then I thought, I kind of want to go back and do those 4 rows the other way and then compare them. But I don't want to rip one out and then compare it and then find out I like the one I did first.
Right.
And I also don't want to knit from the outside of the ball while I already have knitting from the inside of it's like the strategy or the logistics of it is just too much to contemplate.
Yes. Yeah.
So if I could have done, they had you do the tutorial says do a swatch. Well, it's in the round because you steek this pillow after you're done.
Oh,
so
that's interesting.
So because it's stranded color work, which is a lot easier in the round. Believe me, after doing the Orcas Run sweater where I went back and forth, it would have been easier not to have to purl.
Yeah.
The tacking with color work is a lot easier. For me, it was a lot easier on the knit side. Mm-hmm. So I don't have needles that are small enough that I could do a swatch in the round that wasn't huge. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, what would you need? Like 9-inch circulars? So I didn't do that. But it is an interesting technique to think about. And I know I'm going to use it somewhere, that ladderback jacquard. He has a really cute hat that uses it. And I thought, maybe I'll just make that hat and get practice in the technique. Because I think it would be an interesting technique to have in your toolbox. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's right for this pillow, for me, at this point. So anyway, I'm about 4 rows in. It's basically all the gold with the brown being carried behind so that the whole pillow will all be the same structure of fabric. Mm-hmm. And then the color work starts in like row 9 or 10. So I haven't started the color work part of it yet, but I am carrying the other color along so that the whole pillow will have that, both strands being carried. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's one very exciting start because I've been thinking about this for a long time. And then...
Yeah, well, and we were together when you bought the yarn.
Yeah.
And...
yeah, I've been wanting to start
the colors are really pretty.
Oh, this is the first time I've ever purposely bought the same color again to use. But it was the perfect color. I bought the gold, that's Oliver in the neighborhood fiber company, and then I needed a brown. And I was really hesitant to buy the same brown, but it's the right brown. Because it's kind of a blue, like a blue leaning brown. And the gold is kind of a green leaning gold. And so they're both leaning toward the same, like a cinnamon color brown wouldn't have worked. But this, it's Druid Hill is the brown I'm talking about. Marsha used it for Recoleta. Yeah. I used it for my Ohm shawl, and now I'm using it for this pillow. It's like our favorite, favorite brown.
A great color.
It's a really nice brown.
It's a favorite. Yeah.
So anyway, that's where I am with that. And eventually someday I'll do the blanket. And I might have to do the blanket in Neighborhood Fiber Company too, even though it would be super expensive.
Yeah.
But...
Well, you know what? The amount of work that will go into making that blanket, just spend the money.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like...
You might as well use yarn that you want to knit with.
Yes.
Because it's going to take you a while to make that blanket. Because it's... Yeah.
And I don't think... Now that I see the back of the pillow, I had thought about doing the blanket in double knit. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure I would even need to. I'd kind of like to. But again, it's like, how heavy would that blanket be?
Oh, it'd be fabulous, Kelly.
It will be. It'll be like those weighted blankets that you can use for anxiety.
Well, I mean, maybe you don't want a heavy sweater, but you want a heavy blanket.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be. I just think that. I think it would be so cool to do that blanket where it's the double-sided.
I do too. So that's in my.
I'm telling you that you have to do it.
Okay. All right, I will. It's in my more distant future. Yeah. And if I hate the color work, I won't. But in case I do, I mean, this pillow will tell me, or it will inspire me to do the blanket. So I'm really excited about it, and it's going pretty quickly, even though I'm having to tack every stitch. But I need to buy smaller needles, the smaller cable, because it's not quite big enough to go. I thought it would get, how knitting gets a little bit looser and bigger once you started going. But because I have now 2 strands, it's not getting looser and bigger, and I'm struggling with the size of needle that I have, or cable that I have on the circular needle. So I need to get a different, I'm going to buy a smaller one. And then the other project that I started, I have had in my stash for a very long time, a spirit warp. So this is yarn that came from someone else, I don't know who. And not only is it yarn, but it was actually warped, wound as a warp. There were like 20 warp chains of 6 yards of cotton. So, actually, yeah. Maybe not 20. Yeah, I think 20. I didn't use them all because I only have 36 inches wide on my loom. So I've got the full width of my loom, 36 inches, and I'm going to make blankets with it, with my cotton spirit yarn stash. So I'm going to get rid of a lot of cotton.
Oh yeah.
A lot of my spirit yarn stash is going to go into this. Because it's already got...
What size blankets are you making? Like baby blankets or big blankets?
Well, I have 6 yards of warp, so I probably have enough to make maybe 3 baby blanket size or a small throw blanket.
Or could you make a big blanket for the bed?
No, because it's only 36 inches wide.
Oh, okay.
So, but it'll make a nice throw.
Yeah.
So like a throw for the sunroom couch or... a throw, like something you could put on the bottom of the bed, or a throw for the sofa in the living room. This is the thing I love about weaving. Just the warp. 2,085 meters. I mean, that's a lot.
You can fill in that bar.
I know. And it was already wound and everything. So I got it on the loom. I had Robert help me wind it onto the back beam. I just have to tie it now onto the front apron. So it's all threaded, it's all wound, it just needs to be tied, and then I can start weaving. So my weekend plans are to do some weaving, and then also I have to get ready for the trip, but I'm going to get some weaving done on this. So yeah, this is exciting. This is going to be like lots of yarn used all at once. So
very cool.
Yeah,
it's exciting. Yeah.
And then last thing, this is a project that I haven't started yet, but I bought the pattern because do you go to the pattern part of Ravelry and look at the hot right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, this crochet blanket mystery knit along has just kept catching my eye.
Oh, it's a blanket.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I won't interrupt
I just
you.
kept looking at it over and over, and I looked at it a few times and thought, oh, I don't want to make a blanket. Maybe I'll make a pot holder. Maybe I'll make a few pot holders. And then I've gone looking at pot holder patterns, and then I've come back to the hot right now, and then I've seen this thing again. And so several days of telling myself I wasn't going to make a blanket. I should make a pot holder. The pattern was like $2. Why did I not just buy the pattern?
Because you don't go outside the 5-mile radius.
Yes.
That's why.
Yes, and I don't like to buy patterns if I'm not going to actually use them. Because otherwise I feel pressure.
Yeah, I'm the same way, yeah.
But I bought this. I couldn't stand it. I bought this. It's called Karoo Vintage Mystery Along. And it is so cool. It's only the first part. It's only the middle square so far. Every 2 weeks, she's going to give a new part of the pattern. It's literally really only $2 for this pattern. You have to be adventurous because you don't know what it's going to end up looking like.
Right.
But I'm looking at the projects that people have done so far, and they're all really pretty. And it's not really just a square. It was a square. And now it's got like little loop-de-loop things around the edges. And I know it's so pretty and so interesting. So I'm making it. I don't know when I'm going to start, but I'm making it.
Now, is it in your favorites or your queue?
It's neither. It's in my library because I bought the pattern.
In your library because you bought it. Okay, I'm going to your library. I want to look at this thing because I saw
the
in the morning. I think it was in the morning coffee.
Yes,
we were talking about this.
The designer is Jen Tyler. She literally has a 40-minute video on the first clue. So if you didn't know what you were doing, you could actually literally watch. I haven't watched it because when I saw it was 40 minutes, I bailed from it this morning. But I was like trying to get some sense of, what was happening, what the colors, what was she going to tell you information about the colors or what? Literally, she's crocheting this thing on video while you watch. So if you have a problem knowing how to do something,
okay,
there's video tutorials linked. There's 3 in the first clue and 2 or 3 in the second clue. So there's 2 pattern clues that are out so far that I have in my, that I have the patterns for, but I haven't started.
Okay.
She doesn't tell you how much yarn it's going to take total. She doesn't tell you what yarn to buy because she's actually making it up as we go along.
Okay, this is totally your thing and not really my thing.
Right.
Because I'm like, okay, what am I making? But
I'm having such a dilemma because of color that I don't know. I don't want to use the color she's using, but I'm going to have to, and we can talk about this more in another episode once I've thought through it more, but I think I need to look at her colors and look at, like, do some analysis of, like, warm and cool and value contrast. I think the value contrast is going to be the most important because I like the way hers looks and I like the way some of the others look. And I think the way they look has more to do with the contrast than with the actual color. So some of the colors are real contrasty and others are not. Yeah. And I think that's the analysis that I'm going to want to look at. Because I find myself, when I don't like a color combination, it's usually about the contrast, not the actual colors. Like, those are too contrasty, or those are not contrasting enough that you can really see it. So that will be an ongoing little color discussion that we'll be doing once I actually start. But I still haven't even decided what yarn I'm going to use. So do you have enough yarn in your stash, or you're going to have to go buy some? I don't have enough. I don't have enough in my stash to do this with. I mean, do I have enough yardage?
Yes.
Yes, but do I have enough different colors? No. And not the right yarn. Like, I have a lot of yardage in my stash, but a lot of my yardage is weaving cones. And that's not the kind of yarn that I'd want to use. So yeah, I'm going to have to go and make some color choices. So, more to come on that.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, and there's a couple of people who are interested in doing it. In the morning coffee thread, we started talking about it, and it's like, oh, maybe we can have like a little, I called it a little pop-up crochet along, because it's, it's not our along, but there were a few people who were like, oh, that sounds interesting. So Amy Greenhook, she was the one who first sort of like, well, will you do it if I do it?
Yeah. And kind of daring you.
Yeah. And then Mary,
testing the waters.
Yeah, Mary Knit Admin was like, oh, maybe I'll do it. Honestly, I think I spent about 5 or 6 mornings, because I look on the computer in the morning, browse around, read the news. I probably spent 5 or 6 mornings looking at that pattern, looking at people's projects, and then going to look at pot holders. And finally I thought, okay, this is dumb. Just buy the pattern. So anyway, that'll be fun. Carew Vintage Make Along, Jen Tyler. She has the Hooks and Tails website. Okay. So, and her videos are delightful. It's the pattern. The parts of the pattern are based on places that she's been in South Africa. Maybe she's South African. I'll have more information about this in the future. You can tell I'm going to become obsessed about this blanket. So that's what's going on in my fiber life.
Okay. So Kelly, I hear we have a question from a listener.
Yes, we asked if anybody had questions that they wanted us to talk about. And we have a question from Jen, who is Pearl Girl Jen. And here's what she has to say. Hi, Marsha and Kelly. I recently wore a linen cotton Knit Picks Lindy chain fingering weight top and noticed that the front panel biases terribly. But my other top made of the same yarn that is also stocking stitch doesn't seem to. I think the reason I notice it so much in the Park Slope, that's the one sweater, and she actually gave us links to the sweater, is that this one has princess increases below the bust, and that panel shifts to one side as it nears the hem rather than just increasing toward both hips. But in the seawater, the increases are on the side under the arms, and it's an A-line swingy top with a heavier double knit hem. I remember that Marsha was considering a pattern for some linen yarn and decided that she wanted something with lace or texture to avoid the biasing. Is this just something that linen does when it is all stocking stitch?
Mm-hmm.
Other than adding texture, is there a trick to reduce the bias? Thanks for your fun and educational podcast. So I had heard, so linen does bias. It's one of the problems with linen. And I think she's right about the different sweaters and why they bias differently. The one has more room to bias.
Mm-hmm.
So, from the bust to the hips, and it starts in the middle, kind of in the middle of the princess increases, whereas the other one is a little bit heavier, kind of pulls it down and stops some of the biasing. But what I had read somewhere was that the reason that linen biases is because the fiber is slightly twisted in order to make the plant, it's a very the plant is actually
tall. It's super tall.
Yeah, and it's kind of a delicate plant. I mean, I haven't grown linen that's specifically used for fiber. I've grown like a more native wildflower flax, but it's a kind of a delicate plant, and very tall. And so in order to have, what I had read was that in order to have the strength for that, kind of delicate stem to stand up, it has a twist to it, and then that twist in the fiber is what creates the biasing. I went and looked at microscopic pictures of linen fiber, and I really don't see any twisting. There was one photograph that showed, I don't know, the stain they had used to do the microscope work. You could see kind of slanted lines along the fiber, but the fibers are very straight in linen, and they actually look a little bit like bamboo. Not bamboo fiber, but the bamboo plant, where like a bamboo stalk goes up very straight and then has like a ridge, and then another section that goes very straight and then has a ridge. So I'm not sure that the twisting of the fiber is I found no evidence. Only one photograph showed maybe something that looked something like twisting. I didn't find anything in the literature that says that a linen fiber is twisted. Now, like a cotton fiber, you can see the twisting in it. A cotton fiber is all curled up. I mean, it does all kinds of twisting. So I don't know about the why, if that really is about the strength of a linen fiber or not, but it's definitely true that it twists. Less weight, having less weight means that bias is able to show up. Larger swath of stockinette is going to give it more bias. If you use a pattern that is in pieces, you have less chance for that. There's less room for that biasing to occur. So that's another thing that you can do in addition to the texture. Maybe some lace or some other kind of texture.
So even just a stockinette, like if you made a T-shirt out of stockinette, but you made it in pieces, it would probably bias less than if it was in the round.
Yeah. And if you had like a double knit hem, so something heavy to hang it, to pull down on it, I think that also would make a difference.
And what about needle size? If you make a more looser, airier fabric, Will it bias less than if you knit on smaller needles and make it a little bit denser?
I read something about needle size, and I don't remember which it was.
Okay.
I want to say if it's looser, it will bias less.
Okay.
But you know what? I'm not positive I remember that correctly. But there was something about needle size. So you can experiment with your gauge and your needle size to see, if changing needle size in your swatch changes the bias. I think some of the biasing in linen is similar to what you see in cotton, also because of the way the twist is put into the yarn. It might have more to do with the spinning of the yarn than it has to do with the actual fibers, because cotton is usually spun and plied in the same direction, and linen, doesn't need all the plies because it's very strong. So maybe because there's less plying, there's more spinning twist that really isn't balanced by plying twist.
I think that might have something to do, because I'm actually sitting here knitting right now on my linen, the Fibra Natura, and it's a 4-ply, and it's very loosely plied.
Okay.
I would say in an inch, it has maybe 3 twists.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you just...
and the spinning twist, you would probably have quite a bit of spinning twist in linen, because when you spin it tightly, you get the sheen. Interesting.
Well, and I think that, I'm just going to say, from what I was reading, the sheen also comes from the washing.
Okay.
There was one article, in fact, I'll say too, in the show notes, we won't go through all the articles that we read, but we'll just put links to the articles in the show notes. But there was one I read that said that you boil it. You actually bring the finished yarn in a pot to a boil, and you let it boil for several hours, or simmer with a little agitation, like wool, you would not want any kind of simmering at all. You just want to bring it up so it stays hot. But no
linen likes the high heat.
Likes the high heat, and the movement is okay. And it said it just makes it better and better the longer. You really only need to let it boil for about 20 minutes, but you can let it go for several hours, that the yarn can handle it.
Yeah. And the dryer too. It can handle the heat of the dryer, and actually it works really well with the heat and agitation of the dryer. Makes linen better.
But they were saying that the boiling gives it the sheen too.
Okay.
Which I was surprised by. But I'm just looking at my yarn. If I just hold my fingers about an inch apart and I push them together, it unplies. Do you know what I'm saying?
So it's very loosely plied.
Right, and when I've been knitting on this, I've really noticed that it's very, very easy to split the yarn, and so I'm having to be a little careful. In fact, I really don't knit on this in the evening, because I'll go back and see that I have actually split.
Cotton and linen are both spun differently than wool, where you when you, even in commercial yarns, when you look at wool yarns, you have the spinning twist is opposite of the plying twist. And then if they, put multiple plied yarns together, that twist is opposite. So they keep making it opposing twist. And in cotton, they don't do that because it makes the cotton yarn stronger. And in linen, it sounds like they don't put enough twist to balance the plying with... I
think that's true. Yeah. I think that probably is what is affecting it.
Interesting. Because remember when I did the singles experiment, and we did that whole podcast about singles? The singles yarn biases too because of the unbalanced twist. So it might be more to do with the unbalanced twist than it is to do with the actual structure of the, microscopic structure of the linen fiber.
So now I'm going to say another thing, a way to avoid the twist, or to avoid the biasing in your fabric, is don't knit with it, but to weave with it. And now I know that's not what the question is,
right?
But because of the weaving, you're going to be constantly counteracting the twist. So you're probably not going to have the fabric bias,
right?
I would think that in weaving linen, you don't have an issue with biasing.
That's true. Linen fabric doesn't have that doesn't have that problem when it's woven. And lace,
that's not helpful to our listener. But.
Lace knitting in linen is good because you've got yarn overs, you've got knit two togethers that lean one direction, you've got slip knits that lean the other direction. So you've got a lot of things counteracting the twist. So a pattern that has a lace, it could be stockinette with some lace sections of it, like the Elizabeth Doherty's pattern Calyx, where it's stockinette, but there's a strip of lace. That lace strip helps to counterbalance the biasing that would happen, since it's not long swaths of stockinette, that lace is counterbalancing that.
Yeah.
So very interesting question.
Yeah.
From Jen, and interesting that she got two different results using two different patterns. And I think where she put her increases does make a difference. It would make a difference because those increases are going to be lean one way or lean the other way and help to counterbalance the twist too. But I still like linen. I love working with it. Do you like working with it?
I like knitting with this. I like the actual. I don't like. What I was saying when I first started this, I did not like the initial going back and forth between knitting and purling. The purling was difficult, and I'm not finding that it hurts my hands a lot. I have read comments online that knitting with linen hurts their hands. I don't find that at all, but I did find because there isn't any stretch to it, purling was more difficult because it's harder to get the yarn off the needle as you're moving it, transferring it. But I find with just the straight stockinette in the round, it's really easy to knit with. Just you have to keep in mind that it does split, so you have to kind of be careful of that. If you do drop a stitch, you're in big trouble because it unravels like crazy. Really quickly, it unravels.
See, and mine didn't. The linens that I've used have been thinner weights and not as plied. As I remember the texture of the Fibra Natura, and I didn't have that problem of it running. But the thing I did notice is I'm very careless about where I stop in knitting. So like sometimes I always stop in the middle of the round. Sometimes I stop in the middle of a stitch. And I'm not
laughing because I sometimes discover that I've done that too. So
yeah, and I just set it aside. I'm not careful. And I think it's because I've knit so much with wool and also so much with handspun, which, it's very easy to put your stitches back on the needle. But linen, leaps off the needle.
It does.
You set it down and boom, your stitches are off.
Yes, that's 100% true because I've discovered that you actually have to take it and pull your needles through all the way off so it's not on the needles, it's all your stitches are down on the loop.
Yeah, you cannot leave them close to the edge. They'll jump off.
No, you cannot because you set them down and then suddenly you come back and there's 12 stitches have fallen off.
Yeah.
Yes, it's terrible. But I like the process of knitting with it. I don't find it difficult to knit with. You just have to take some precautions.
Yeah. It's just different, and you have to understand.
Keep some things in mind. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's also to say too, because they do leap off your needles really easy. That also means that they just slide along the needles really easy.
Yeah, I like using linen and really slippery needles. Because man, it goes fast. It feels like it goes really fast.
Yeah.
But if you feel like it's too slippery, you might want to try to use wooden needles with linen.
Yeah.
But I like the feel of the really, linen that pops right off the needles and the really slippery needles. But somebody else might not like that feeling.
So I hope that answers questions as best we can about linen.
Yeah.
I will say one thing I thought was kind of interesting about reading the articles about linen, not just about, because I got beyond, of course, as you start reading these articles, you get sucked into things that are not about the question that was asked. I thought was interesting is when they harvest the linen, they don't cut it off at the ground. They actually pull it up by the roots because the fibers they go from the stem all the way down into the roots. And so they actually, like weeds, they just pull them out of the ground so they can use the entire plant.
All of
that
fiber.
Was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And then the other thing I thought was interesting is flax seeds are very nutritional, and flaxseed oil is very good for you. But if you are growing the plant for the linen, the fiber, you harvest it before it goes to seed, because if you wait too long and it goes to seed, then the fiber is not as good. It's I think it's too coarse and rough. I think
so. You can't have a multi-purpose crop.
Right. So you grow it for the fiber or you grow it for the seeds. You can't use it for both. And they said the issue too is then if you're growing it for the fiber, then you harvest it before you have seeds. So you can't use your seeds from the plants to produce your next crop. So what we had talked briefly before we started recording or saying is then people must have to grow 2 crops, one for the fiber and one for the seed, so that they can save some of those seeds that they harvest for replanting.
Yeah,
but,
interesting.
Very interesting, and it's such an ancient way of making material.
Yeah,
too.
I think that's one of the things I like the most about linen is how old it is.
It was really interesting that they can prepare the fiber, I say the more natural way, which is you just put it like in a bog and let the natural organisms and the bacteria just break down break it down, or they can use chemicals. But they're saying that the chemical sometimes it's quicker, but the material that it produces is not as nice as the fiber that's
the naturally created fiber.
Right.
Is better.
Yeah.
Well, it's sure a pretty fiber, and I really like the fabric it makes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, as I say, we'll put links to those different articles. And there is a Ravelry group, too. I wanted to mention this, too. There is a Ravelry group. There's a lot of Ravelry groups, but the one I was looking at that I thought was really good is called Linen and Hemp. And they talk a lot about uses and...
Yeah, that's the Linen and Hemp Lovers group? Yeah. So, well, good. Yeah. Thanks.
So we'll put those links in there.
Cool.
So, and then I think we have one other last thing. Again, we announced it in the last episode, but we just want to mention again that we are going to be at the Black Sheep Gathering, and the last weekend in June, and that's Saturday,
coming up
June 30th.
Soon.
Yes. Yeah. I'm going to see you a week from next Thursday. I'll see you.
Yeah. So
is that right?
Yeah, this episode should go up this weekend, and then the following weekend we'll be at Black Sheep.
Yeah. So, but anyway, the meetup will be at Kelly's trailer, which everyone knows. They should know by now. Looks like it's red and orange. Or, excuse me, what am I talking about? Sorry.
Orange and black.
Orange. Oh my God! Don't let Robert hear that I just said that.
I won't tell him at all.
Orange and black and cream.
Called the Clubhouse.
Yes, and it's a vintage trailer, and you'll be parked at the fairgrounds.
Yep, right outside the building.
Hopefully. Or you know your spot you have already.
I know where we are, but I don't exactly know how the event's going to be configured.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're outside the buildings. There's like a ring around the buildings that has trailers, and we're outside in that outside ring around the buildings.
Okay, so anyway, but it will be that Saturday, June 30th, around 4:30.
Yeah.
We'll meet at the trailer. And
if you're not ready to come by at 4:30, come by at 5, come by at 5:30. It's just kind of a open house at the trailer for a few hours. We'll have some food and some drink, and bring your knitting and your crocheting.
And bring your stories.
Yeah. Show us what you bought, or show us what you're working on.
Yeah.
So, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. So, any more things we need to talk about?
In August, there will be the fleece judging at the Monterey County Fair. And then in September is the Monterey County Fair auction. If you're interested in coming for the fleece judging and you want to come over to the house for a little get-together afterwards, let me know, because we're going to do that. There will be a little meetup after the fleece judging. That's August 11th. So we have a little time before that happens.
And also, Kelly, what we should also say, too, is and I forgot to mention this about the meetup at the Black Sheep Gathering. If people need to contact us, they can message us through Ravelry, through our Ravelry, or they can contact us through our web site. There's the email addresses on there. And if Kelly, do you want to go ahead and tell everybody what it is?
Yes, it's 2Ewes at 2UseFiberAdventures.com. And then if you go on the website, which is, 2UseFiberAdventures.com, if you go to the website, there's a contact us page, so you can use that too. So there's a couple of ways to contact our email through either the website or using our email address, or get in touch with us through Ravelry. I can give you my phone number in case you want to text us and say, hey, we can't find you. Where are you? We can give you information.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. So I will see you Thursday.
Yeah. Exciting. Woo-hoo. All right, Marsha.
Seems like I just saw you. It's funny.
I know.
I know. Was that April I saw you? It's been a while.
It's been since April, but yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay. We will talk, and I'll see you on Thursday.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2UseFiberAdventures.com. We have links for iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, and others.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2Ewes
doing our part for World Fleece.